Hi, and welcome to Cuisine Secrets. I'm Julie Hardigan. When it comes to exploring Asian food and flavors, you may have enjoyed plenty of Chinese, Thai, Japanese, possibly Korean and Indian dishes. But if you consider yourself a foodie, there's one country in Asia you may not have explored yet, and we're going to tell you as soon as we come back.
How can you save time and money when you shop? Get into the habit of buying your store's store brands. You get the same quality as national brands and save at the cash register. No apps, no coupons, just money in your pocket. Give store brands a try and smile your way through the supermarket.
Welcome back. So this episode is focused on food from an Asian country that is not always first to mind, the Philippines. With a mix of cultural influences, flavors, and cooking styles, Filipino food is both relatable and comforting while still retaining a deliciously exotic edge. Filipinos actually make up the second largest Asian population in the United States, and in recent years, Filipino cuisine has rightly been gaining more and more press and attention. In fact, it's often cited as one of the next big food trends. Today, we're going to visit restaurateur, cookbook author, and Filipino cuisine expert Nicole Ponseca to learn more about the exciting flavors of the Philippines, as well as their unique and seriously fun tradition of kumayan, also known as boodle fight. So Nicole, thank you so much for having us.
Oh my God, thank you for being here. Jeepney, Filipino home.
Thank you. So for our viewers at home who maybe haven't had Filipino cuisine yet, I'd love for you to describe for us the key flavors and ingredients, just what to expect.
What you can expect is a journey of flavors. It's 7,100 islands, different regions, mountainous, coastal, and you're gonna get so many different kinds of flavors. So you gotta imagine there's 1,000 flavors.
Yeah.
And what those are for me, the cornerstones are coconut milk base, vinegar base, tomato, and funk. Yeah, and
I like funk.
The
So what
funk
do you
is
mean
where it's
by
at.
funk? Are we talking kimchi funk? Are
Yeah.
we talking, like, I know kimchi's Korean, but what do you mean by funk? Like
Yeah,
sauerkraut?
a
Would that be
little
a way
similar to what we would know in kimchi, but it's that fermentation,
Sure.
it's that umami, it's you
Yum.
know, there's so many cultures, but I'm just gonna list you the top 5.
Sure, yeah,
You
perfect.
have Malaysian, you have American, you have a little bit of Japanese, and you also have a little bit of British and Dutch, actually.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know this, but the first immigrants to the Philippines were the Chinese. And in fact, the oldest Chinatown in the world
No way, really?
is located in the Philippines.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
all of this brought together is this cuisine you really can't find anywhere else, and which people really don't know because Filipino food is only getting popular now.
Right. So I do know that condiments and dipping sauces known as sausawan are really big in Filipino cuisine, and I'd love for you to explain to everybody at home just what those are, what your favorites are, what the combinations are.
Sure. You know, on every kitchen table I've seen in my research, going from the most northern part of the Philippines all the way down to the Muslim South, it didn't matter if it was a very wealthy house, a very high-end restaurant, or a very humble home. You typically have 3 to 4 condiments on the table. Something sour, so like a vinegar or citrus. Something salty, or my favorite word, funk. So that could be fish sauce or fermented shrimp paste. And then, you know, something a little bit spicy. But the spice isn't such a stronghold in Filipino cuisine, say like in Malaysian food or Thai food. That's not really part of us. But sausawan is the idea that the food is not finished until it's in front of the diner. So we mix this sausawan to our liking, to your liking, and you will dip or you'll dot dishes to heighten the salt or the maasim. Some of the dishes have a real punch to it, like adobo is going to be garlicky.
Can you describe for us
sour.
what adobo is, just so that everybody, because I know people at home might have a different perception of adobo.
Sure. Oh my God, what
You know
a
what I'm
great
saying?
question. Because what we know in adobo in the US actually would typically come from, say, Mexico or the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico. Adobo. But for those cultures, you might know it just as a sprinkling spice, right? As a beginner or a finishing. But for us, adobo is not only just a flavor profile, it's a technique. So
it's usually soy sauce, vinegar, garlic? What are the key components to an adobo?
Classic adobo, which we know from mainland Luzon, is soy sauce, vinegar, garlic, and bay leaf. But what you'll find in my book and also in the research is just like there's 7,000 islands,
Right.
there are 7,000 adobos.
Versions. Every grandma probably has their own.
Honey,
and
let me
she
tell
swears
you.
it's the only way to make it.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. And she will not tell you what's in it either.
No. Yeah.
But vinegar is the thread that binds them all.
Right.
But you will find a yellow adobo, adobong dilaw, which might have turmeric.
Okay.
Or you might have adobong pula, which is a red adobo using annatto or a chuete.
Such a great way to bring in all those cultural influences, like you
Yes.
were saying, right?
Yeah.
From different regions.
Yes.
So you guys, there's a fantastic custom in the Philippines, or I want to hear more about it, and I want to hear from you, called kumayan or boodle fight. I actually attempted to host one in my home, and I would love to hear from you. Is this authentic? Where did it come from, and what does it represent?
You know, I'm a female entrepreneur. You're in a restaurant in New York City, arguably probably one of the toughest industries and cities to do it in.
Definitely.
And the average restaurant closes within the first year. 90% of restaurants close in the first year, and I was facing that. I didn't pay rent for like 5 months.
Ooh, yeah.
And come January, I was scared. And I was trying to think, how am I gonna get my restaurant to survive?
Right.
And I thought of my dad, who used to eat with his hands. And I said to myself, if this restaurant is meant for anything, it's to turn anything I was embarrassed about and make myself proud of it and share it. So kumayan for me growing up was just my dad eating on a plate with some rice, very simply, sometimes one leg up, you know, on a bar stool or whatever.
So it is
very
actually,
humble.
it's not just a thing.
It's
something
just a
that people
technique of
actually do.
eating.
Right,
It's
okay.
just a technique of eating with your hand, to kumayan. Now, I said, if I'm gonna do it in a restaurant, I'm gonna have to show it. I'm gonna have to make this
it a
like
spectacle, make it
show-worthy.
really fun. Yeah.
And it really turned my business around.
Right,
I said,
right.
let's put all of this food on a long river, on a banana leaf with rice, and plate the food so beautifully that you're not gonna wanna keep your hands off of it.
Right. What about the term boodle fight?
Boodle fight comes from the war and from American civil services coming to the Philippines. And the Filipinos, they would feed them in a long row without silverware.
Right.
And they knew that we could eat like this from our culture, but it really was for them to eat fast and get back into their station, their military station. And so that's where the term boodle fight comes from. And also they used to say it was a reference to kit and caboodle.
Oh, okay.
Like everything kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
They just put all the food out there.
This is so exciting. We're going to get an inside look at how a traditional Filipino kumayan or boodle fight is put together.
The jeepney, we put torched banana leaves down. And the reason why we torch those leaves is because it's gonna release a lot of natural oils. An added benefit to it is that it's gonna provide this beautiful aroma. So even before you sink your teeth into anything, you're gonna smell beautiful banana leaves. It's a very distinct smell. And we like to layer it almost like fish scales. It looks very beautiful. And the food typically lies down more uniformly when you do it this way. So he's torching them just a little bit more. So you can see almost like a before and after. Once that heat goes onto the leaf, it really is changing the look of it. The banana leaf is gonna act like a plate for the kumayan. So down the center of all these banana leaves is gonna go a river of rice. We have him wearing gloves right now. The gloves typically get oiled. Then the food isn't gonna stick to the glove. See how beautiful this is? This little river. This is quintessential jeepney. This is our signature here. This is the foundation for the presentation. First up, what do we got? Boom! Adobo. National dish of the Philippines, stewed pork or chicken or protein or vegetables. Hipon, AKA shrimps. Next that he put down, you'll see, are those beautiful ribs. That's a hallmark here, guys. That's not necessarily something you find in the Philippines. He also put down some marinated pork shoulder. Right now he's putting down a whole fried fish. And we call this fish at Jeepney dampa. over the dampa is our escabeche sauce. This is just a beautiful, light, sweet and sour sauce that's been confettied with bell peppers. It really soaks into the skin of the fish and gets into the meat quite nicely because we've scored the fish. It's so good. Jerlin is going to be pouring over a sauce. I call it gold. It's going over the pork shoulder that's been cooked so slowly. And that sauce, guys, it is coconut milk, fermented shrimp paste, bits of sausage, Filipino sausage, and garlic. In texture, this is our adobo sauce that we've cooked down with mushrooms. In case we forgot, Filipino love. There's no right or wrong. We just know it's not finished until you love it.
Thank you so much, Nicole. So we're gonna head back to the studio and I'm gonna show you guys an easy recipe to try at home. You guys, I am so excited to share this recipe with you. We are going to make some classic Filipino lumpia or spring rolls. They are crispy and delicious and perfect for parties and so simple to make. So to get started, we're going to mince up a bunch of different veggies, and to make things a little easier, we're going to use a food processor to do that. You can do it by hand if you don't have a food processor. So we'll start with 1 small onion and some carrot, and you can see you just need to cut it into large chunks. You don't need to go crazy. Peel and cut the carrot into chunks. Then a rinsed and drained can of water chestnuts. It's going to give it some nice crunch. Some garlic cloves. And finally, for some color and a little more onion flavor, some cut up spring onion or scallion. Just remove the root end and cut it into sections. So we're just going to pulse this a few times until they're finely minced. Okay, you might want to scrape the sides down a little bit just to make sure that they're all cut to an even size. Okay, and then we're just going to pulse it 1 or 2 more times. So seriously, how easy was that? We've got our minced veggies, and what we're going to do is mix it in with a pound of ground pork. Now, if you don't like pork, you could swap in ground turkey or ground chicken, and in fact, some recipes call for half ground pork, half ground beef, but we're going to keep it simple today. And then I'm going to mix in some seasonings. So we'll just combine everything in 1 large bowl. To season this, we're going to add some black pepper, some minced ginger, some salt, and some soy sauce. And we'll just stir to combine. Once this is combined, we are going to use some spring roll wrappers. We're gonna fill them and roll them up into like a little cigar shape, and then they're ready to pan fry. Okay, so once you have everything combined, it's time to take your spring rolls out of the fridge. You can buy those frozen in the freezer case at Asian markets or even online, but you have to defrost them to get ready to stuff them and roll them. Okay, so now we're ready to stuff and roll our lumpia. And this recipe makes 25, which is the amount of spring roll wrappers in a package. And here's a little tip for you. After you defrost them from the freezer, you can take the package and just kind of bend it to help separate them. Put them on a plate and definitely keep them covered with a damp paper towel so they don't dry out while you're putting them together. This, by the way, is a good activity to do with kids or with friends because you'll see, we're gonna be making 25 of these. It's easy to do, but it does take a little bit of time. So we're gonna put the wrapper in like a diamond shape with this point facing towards us, and then use either a tablespoon scoop or a tablespoon measure. Take a little bit of your filling, and we'll put it right about here, and I'll show you why. So now we're gonna take it and spread it into kind of a cigar shape, which is the shape we want the lumpia to be in when we're done. Just use your fingers to shape it a little bit. Okay, now you just roll it away from you like this. When you get about halfway, kind of like doing a burrito, you're going to fold this part in tightly. You can see why this is a good one to do with some friends or family hanging out around the kitchen table to speed things up. Brush a little egg to seal it. once you've finished stuffing and rolling out all 25 lumpia, if you wanted, you could pop this pan in the freezer to get them completely frozen, keep them in a storage baggie in the freezer to cook for a later date. That's just a great tip if you're having a party and you don't want to be stuffing and rolling lumpia right before your guests arrive. Now, when you're ready to cook them, you have a few different options. If you have a deep fryer, you can cook them in there. That's kind of the traditional way of doing it. You would set it to 350 degrees and cook them for about 5 or 6 minutes. And it's always a good idea, almost like when you do pancakes, to do kind of a test lumpia first. Just cook it for that amount of time and cut it in half. Make sure it's nice and crispy and browned on the outside and that the pork is cooked all the way through in the middle. And then if you wanted to, if you don't have a deep fryer, you could also pan fry them. Just put a little canola oil in a deep pan, set it over medium to medium-high heat. If you have a thermometer, it can be helpful to make sure it's at 350 degrees, or you'll get the sense from testing 1 or 2. Just cook it until it's lightly browned on the outside and nice and crispy. And like I said, just cut it in half and kind of check, make a test lumpia to make sure it's cooked all the way through. And then finally, if you want to lighten things up a little bit, you can also spray these with some cooking spray and just cook them in your air fryer. That usually works at about 400 degrees or so for 3 or 4 minutes. They'll get nice and crispy and cooked all the way through. So when they're done cooking, this is what you are looking for. They're beautifully browned. These smell so amazing. Crispy all around. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Cuisine Secrets. I'm Julie Hardigan. Make sure you subscribe to our Store Brands USA YouTube channel, and I'll see you next time.